Okay, so today we're diving into some pretty heavy stuff. The book your church doesn't want you to read. And, well, it's a doozy.
Yeah, it really gets you thinking.
It really does. We're talking about, like, the big questions of religion, history, mythology, all that good stuff.
And how they all kind of like intertwine.
Exactly. It challenges those stories we've always been told.
Right from the start, it points out these striking similarities between the Jesus story and figures like Horus and Krishna, even Mithra.
And it's not just like a passing resemblance. We're talking virgin births, miracles.
Crucifixion even.
Whoa. Okay, so like specific example.
Well, there's Horus. Yeah. Depicted with a crown of thorns way before,
Before Jesus.
Exactly. And then there's Krishna's birth, parallels to the whole nativity scene.
Huh. It's almost like all these stories, they're drawing from the same, well, not the same well, but...
A common source of inspiration.
Yeah. Like, what were the cultural forces at play back then?
See, and that's what's so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not about disproving anyone's beliefs, but
understanding where those beliefs might have come from.
exactly. Like the idea of a God who dies and comes back to life, it pops up everywhere throughout history.
Yeah, it does kind of make you think, doesn't it? Like, this deep human need to believe in.
In something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. Okay, so then the book gets into this whole astrotheology thing.
Ah, yes. Astrotheology.
To be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on what that even is.
It's basically the idea that early religions, they were super connected to, like, the stars and planets.
Like they use the stars to, what, predict the future of their religion?
Kind of.
Huh?
But more like they saw religious meaning in the movements of the cosmos. The book even makes this connection between the zodiac.
You mean like the 12 signs and all that?
And that phrase from the Bible, "In my Father's house are many mansions."
Wait, so they're saying that astrology, like horoscopes and stuff, that has roots in early religion?
It's a possibility the book raises. And it goes even deeper. The sun's journey, right? Its death and rebirth every winter solstice.
They connected that to, like, savior figures.
They did.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much of what we believe is based on.
On stuff people observed in nature. Wow.
The winter solstice is a powerful symbol. The shortest day of the year. Then the light starts coming back. Hope, renewal.
It's like the whole death and resurrection story, but in nature.
Exactly. And then the book shifts gears. From the cosmos down to Earth. We get into the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Ah, yes. The Dead Sea Scrolls. I actually remember learning about those in
Sunday school.
history class, actually. Big discovery, right?
Huge. A whole new perspective on, well, early Christianity especially.
In this book, it focuses on something I'd never heard before. Horoscopes in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
It's true. They found horoscopes in there.
Yeah.
Shows you that early Christianity, maybe it wasn't so.
Monolithic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot more diversity of thought back then. And that's just the beginning. The book goes on to suggest that.
Oh, well, that Jesus himself might have been in a scene.
They do make that claim based on the whole Jesus the Nazarene thing. And get this, they talk about how some Dead Sea Scroll findings were, like,
Covered up.
well, maybe not covered up, but definitely suppressed. Like there were things in there that
That challenged the official story too much.
potentially, it's like we're still putting together this giant puzzle. And some
Oh.
pieces, they just don't seem to fit.
But they're part of the puzzle nonetheless.
Exactly.
It's one thing to, like, reinterpret history, right? But this book, it goes even further, questions the Bible's moral authority.
It definitely doesn't shy away from the difficult stuff.
No, it doesn't. It brings up, like, the violence and cruelty attributed to, some biblical figures.
There are some stories in there that, well, they make you think twice.
To say the least, like, they talk about Gideon, who, I mean, not only did he plunder his victims, but his son ends up killing, get this, 69 of his half-brothers?
It's a lot to process. How do you reconcile those stories with, the idea of the Bible as a source of moral guidance?
Right. It's a tough one.
It really makes you think about, like, cultural relativism, historical context. Ethics have evolved, haven't they?
Yeah, no kidding. And speaking of tough questions, they don't let up on the whole original sin thing either.
Ah, yes. Original sin. The idea that we inherit the guilt from, Adam and Eve's little slip-up.
Which has been like a cornerstone of Christian theology for centuries.
Centuries. But this book, it asks us to, to really examine that, the psychological implications. Does it even make sense in today's world?
And it's not just specific stories or interpretations. They even question the whole idea of biblical inerrancy.
You mean the belief that the Bible is perfect? Without error?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a big one. A lot of debate around that.
And this book jumps right into that debate. They point out contradictions, historical inaccuracies, even times when, like, the New Testament seems to reference Old Testament prophecies that
Wait, it
no.
don't actually exist.
Apparently.
It's like they're saying, hey, the Bible is a product of its time, written by humans, with all the flaws that come with being human.
Right, which isn't to diminish its power. It's still an incredibly influential text.
Absolutely. But this book just wants us to, to see it with fresh eyes, with all its complexities.
And then it gets really heavy. We move from like theological debates to real world issues, abuses within religious institutions, particularly concerning,
Women and children.
exactly.
Yeah, the book doesn't hold back there. It's a tough but necessary conversation.
It is. They talk about female genital mutilation, which is just
Horrific. And it's not just one religion. It happens across cultures, across faiths.
They specifically mention the Ethiopian Christian church and even some Coptic Christian communities.
It's a tough reality to face.
Yeah.
But this book, it shines a light on these dark corners
Mm.
because, pretending it doesn't exist.
That's not helping anyone.
Exactly.
And then they get into the whole issue of sexual abuse within the church, criticizing those who try to downplay it or
Defend it.
yeah, which is,
Unconscionable. What's heartbreaking is this is a global problem.
and it's been going on for
Centuries, probably. This book, it's part of a larger movement demanding transparency, accountability.
justice,
Yes, justice for the survivors.
holding these institutions accountable, especially those that, claim moral authority.
They need to be held to a higher standard.
Okay, and then the book shifts gears again from internal abuses to like the church's role in the world.
The whole church and state thing.
Yeah. It dives into the history of their separation in America, referencing figures like Roger Williams, Thomas Jefferson.
Important stuff. It reminds us that this separation, it wasn't just handed down from on high. It was fought for.
Hard one, for sure. And it feels like we're still having that fight today, doesn't it?
Every single day.
The book really digs into the tax-exempt status of churches.
Which, that's a whole other can of worms.
Sure. Do they really need that kind of, financial advantage?
And where does that money go?
Yeah.
What are they doing with it? These are legitimate questions.
Yeah, totally. And then, of course, there's the influence of religious groups on politics. They bring up the Christian coalition.
How could they not?
Right.
Yeah.
Their impact on education, social policies.
There's a lot of power. And it's not always used for, well, let's just say not everyone agrees with their agenda.
And that's putting it mildly. Look, the point is, whether we like it or not, religion plays a role in politics.
Always has. Always will.
And this book, it's saying, hey, pay attention, be informed.
Be engaged. Because these issues, they affect all of us, whether we're religious or not.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground. This book, it's like a crash course in, well, everything.
It really connects the dots, doesn't it? From
Yeah.
ancient myths to, like, what's happening in politics right now.
It's almost overwhelming, all these big questions, these challenges to
To what we thought we knew.
yeah, like it makes you question everything.
And that's a good thing. This book, it's not about giving you all the answers. It's about,
Making you think for yourself.
exactly, it's saying, hey, don't just take our word for it. Dig a little deeper.
And that can be scary, right?
It can be,
Right.
but it can also be incredibly liberating.
If some of these core religious ideas, they're not as solid as we thought, then
What does that mean for faith itself?
yeah.
Like, what are we even left with?
Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe it's not about what we're left with, but
But how we move forward.
exactly. With open minds, with curiosity.
So, like, after all this, what do we do? Where do we go from here?
We keep asking questions, we keep learning, keep exploring.
So, this book, the book your church doesn't want you to read, it's really just the beginning, isn't it?
It's a starting point, a springboard for further exploration.
And that exploration, it can be personal, it can be communal,
It can be challenging, it can be inspiring.
but one thing's for sure, it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely.